Imagine standing in a sun-scorched palace, watching a father, a king, take his young daughter's hand in marriage, a union not of love, but of divine ambition. Or picture someone so consumed by pride in their bloodline that they'd wed their own kin to forge a nobler legacy. Shocking, unthinkable, yet in the sands of ancient Egypt, such acts wove the fabric of power. Welcome to our channel's parallel world, where history bends and secrets unravel. Today, we dive into the enigma of Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh who reshaped Egypt's soul. In our alternate tale, he marries one young daughter and takes another as a concubine, binding his dynasty in ways that echo both ancient rites and modern taboos. Why did Egypt's royals embrace these unions? Was it divine mandate, political strategy, or something more human, desire cloaked in ritual? We'll explore the real customs of the Nile, where gods and mortals blurred, and draw daring parallels to today's world, where power still twists family ties. Buckle up for a 40-minute journey through a reimagined Amarna, where intrigue, faith, and forbidden bonds collide. Will you judge, or will you understand? Stay with us. This is no ordinary history lesson. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's step into a world where the past meets the provocative. What secrets await? Let's find out. Welcome back, explorers of the unknown. You've just stepped into a world where the line between mortal and divine blurs, where pharaohs weren't just kings, but living gods, and where family ties wove a tapestry of power that could shock even the boldest modern mind. In this first chapter of our journey, we're diving into the heart of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty, long before our parallel universe twists the tale of Akhenaten. Why did pharaohs marry their kin, sometimes even their daughters? What drove these unions that seem so alien today? Let's unravel the customs, beliefs, and ambitions that made such bonds not just accepted, but sacred. By the end, you'll see echoes of these dynamics in our world today, because power, pride, and lineage still play their games. In ancient Egypt, around 1350 BCE, the Nile was more than a river. It was the lifeblood of a civilization obsessed with eternity. Pharaohs ruled as gods incarnate, their every act a bridge between earth and the divine. To maintain this celestial status, their bloodline had to remain pure, untainted by outsiders. Imagine a society where your family tree isn't just heritage, it's a divine mandate. Marrying within the royal family, whether siblings or parents and children, wasn't just a choice. It was a cosmic necessity. The gods demanded it, the people revered it, and the throne depended on it. Take a moment to picture this. A young princess, radiant in gold, standing beside her father, the pharaoh, not just as his daughter, but as his queen. To us, it's jarring. To them, it was divine order. The great royal wife, often a sister or daughter, wasn't just a partner. She was a symbol of continuity, a living goddess like Hathor or Isis, ensuring the dynasty's sacred lineage. These unions weren't about romance as we know it. They were about power, stability, and immortality. The pharaoh's blood was divine, and diluting it with outsiders risked angering the gods, or so they believed. This wasn't mere tradition, it was a sacred contract with the cosmos. But why daughters? Why not just distant cousins? The answer lies in the mythology of the gods themselves. Egyptian deities, like Osiris and Isis, brother and sister, were lovers and rulers of the divine realm. Their story was a blueprint for the pharaohs, who saw themselves as earthly mirrors of these gods. A pharaoh marrying his daughter wasn't just a man taking a bride. He was reenacting a divine archetype, binding his rule to the eternal. It's tempting to judge, but imagine believing your blood holds the key to the universe's balance. Would you risk breaking that chain? Let's ground this in history. The 18th dynasty, one of Egypt's most dazzling eras, saw pharaohs like Thutmose I and Amenhotep III marry their sisters or daughters to cement their rule. Artifacts from the period, steles, statues, inscriptions, show these women elevated to divine status. For example, Hatshepsut, a female pharaoh, was the daughter and wife of Thutmose I, her father. Her role as great royal wife and later as ruler blurred family and power in ways that seem dizzying today. These weren't secret scandals, they were celebrated, etched in stone for eternity. Now let's pause and draw a line to today. We don't marry kin to preserve divine blood, but don't we still chase lineage in subtler ways? Think of modern dynasties, political families, corporate empires, even celebrity clans. The Kennedys, the Windsors, or even tech moguls passing empires to their heirs. It's not marriage, but it's the same instinct. Keep power in the family, preserve the legacy. Ever notice how we obsess over who's next in a royal line or a business dynasty? It's not so different from Egypt's fixation on blood purity, just dressed in suits instead of gold. Back to Egypt. These unions weren't just symbolic, they were strategic. A pharaoh's daughter as his wife ensured no rival could claim her hand and challenge the throne. It kept wealth, titles, and divine favor locked within the family. But it wasn't without tension. Imagine the court, whispers in the shadows, advisors plotting, priests invoking gods to justify it all. The young princess, trained from birth to embody divine grace, might have seen her role as duty, not choice. Yet in some cases, was there affection, ambition, a spark of something more human beneath the ritual? We'll explore that soon in our alternate tale. The system wasn't flawless. Multiple wives and consorts meant complex family trees. A pharaoh like Amenhotep III had dozens of children, some destined for marriage, others for diplomacy. Daughters were chess pieces, married to their father, brother, or foreign kings to seal alliances. Yet they held power too. A great royal wife could influence policy, command loyalty, even shape religion. Nefertiti, Akhenaten's famous queen, wasn't just a consort, she was a co-ruler, her image carved as equal to her husband's. This dynamic, family as both ally and rival, created a court where trust was fragile and ambition burned bright. Now consider the stakes. A pharaoh's daughter wasn't just a bride, she was a political anchor. If a rival noble married her, he could claim divine legitimacy. By keeping her close, the pharaoh neutralized threats. But what did this mean for the women? We lack their voices. Papyrus doesn't preserve their diaries, but imagine the weight. Raised to be goddesses, yet bound by duty. Were they proud? Resigned? Did they wield their status like a weapon? In our parallel world, we'll give them agency, voices, desires, because history hints at more than silent obedience. Let's touch on today again. We don't marry our kin, but we still see power concentrated in families. Look at political dynasties or even influencers passing fame to their kids. Ever wonder why certain names dominate? It's not divine blood, but it's clout, connections, a modern kind of purity. And taboos. We have them too. Society draws lines. What's acceptable, what's scandalous. Egypt's royal marriages were their norm. Today they'd spark outrage. Yet, don't we still romanticize power couples, even when their unions raise eyebrows? The allure of forbidden bonds hasn't faded, it just wears a different mask. Back to the Nile. These practices weren't universal. Commoners rarely married kin. This was a royal privilege, tied to divine status. But even among pharaohs it varied. Some, like Ramses II, married daughters for ceremonial roles, not always as primary wives. Others leaned on sisters or cousins. The flexibility shows it wasn't just blind tradition, there was calculation. A daughter as queen could secure a shaky reign, especially in turbulent times. And turbulence was coming. The 18th dynasty was about to face a storm named Akhenaten, a pharaoh who'd rewrite the rules of gods and men. As we close this chapter, picture Egypt's court. Incense curling through golden halls, priests chanting, a young princess stepping into a role that's both honor and cage. The Pharaoh, her father, sees her not just as kin, but as a key to eternity. This was their world, strange, sacred, strategic. But what if we twist it? What if Akhenaten, the rebel king, took this tradition to new heights in a parallel universe? What if his daughters weren't just pawns, but players in a game of power, faith, and forbidden bonds? Hold that thought. Welcome back, time travelers, to our journey through a reimagined Egypt. In part 1, we explored why pharaohs wove their bloodlines into divine tapestries, marrying kin to secure power and eternity. Now, we step into the heart of the 18th dynasty, where one man dared to rewrite the rules of gods and kings. Meet Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh whose radical vision shook Egypt to its core. In our parallel world, his choices will take an even bolder turn, entwining his young daughters in a dance of faith, power, and forbidden bonds. Let's set the stage. The city of Amarna, a court pulsing with intrigue and a family caught between divinity and desire. By the end, you'll see the sparks that ignite our alternate tale, and maybe spot echoes of ambition in our world today. Picture Egypt around 1353 BCE. The Nile glitters under a relentless sun, and the old gods, Ra, Osiris, Amun, reign supreme. Temples overflow with offerings, priests wield immense power, and the pharaoh is their divine conduit. Enter Amenhotep IV, soon to be Akhenaten, a young king with a vision that would upend it all. Unlike his predecessors, he wasn't content to follow tradition. He saw one god above all, Aten, the sun disk, radiant and singular. To worship Aten, he broke with centuries of polytheism, declared himself the sole prophet of this new faith, and built a new capital, Amarna, to enshrine his revolution. Imagine the audacity, a pharaoh telling an ancient civilization to abandon their gods for his. Amarna was no ordinary city. Carved from the desert, it was a monument to Akhenaten's ego and faith. Golden palaces gleamed, wide avenues buzzed with artisans, and temples to Aten replaced the old shrines. But this wasn't just a religious shift, it was a cultural earthquake. Akhenaten sidelined the powerful priests of Amun, redirecting their wealth to his sun cult. He reshaped art, too. Statues and reliefs from Amarna show him not as a stoic god-king, but as a human figure with a long face, full lips, and a strangely intimate style. His family, especially his great royal wife Nefertiti, was front and center in this new world, their images carved everywhere, radiating divine unity. Now let's meet the family at the heart of this drama. Akhenaten and Nefertiti had 6 daughters, each raised in the glow of Aten's worship. For now we'll focus on 2, Meritaten, the eldest, and Ankesenpaten, the third born. Both were young, trained from childhood to embody the grace of goddesses, their lives shaped by the court's expectations. Meritaten, radiant and poised, appears in inscriptions as a key figure in rituals, her name meaning beloved of Aten. Ankesenpaten, equally striking, carries a name tied to the sun god's favor. These weren't just princesses, they were symbols of Akhenaten's divine lineage, destined for roles that would bind the dynasty tighter. The court of Amarna was a world of splendor and tension. Imagine golden halls filled with incense, musicians playing, and courtiers whispering behind lotus-shaped columns. Akhenaten and Nefertiti presided over this stage, their daughters at their side, dressed in sheer linen, adorned with jewels that caught the sun's rays. But beneath the surface, rivalries simmered, advisors vied for favor, priests of the old gods plotted in shadows, and foreign allies sent letters eyeing Egypt's wealth. The royal family was both a united front and a chessboard, where every move, every marriage, carried weight. In this world, a daughter wasn't just kin, she was a key to power. Akhenaten's revolution made him enemies. By elevating Aten, he alienated the Amun priesthood, whose influence rivaled the throne. To secure his legacy, he leaned on his family, especially Nefertiti and his daughters. Inscriptions show Meritaten and Ankhesenpaten in prominent roles, offering to Aten, standing beside their parents in ceremonies. Were they mere symbols, or did they wield real influence? Imagine Meritaten, young but sharp, aware of her role as a bridge between her father's vision and the dynasty's future. Ankhesenpaten, perhaps quieter but no less vital, her beauty a tool for diplomacy or devotion. Their lives were scripted, yet history hints at agency. Women in Egypt could hold power, and these daughters were no exception. Now, let's weave in our parallel world. In the real Amarna, daughters were often betrothed to strengthen alliances or secure succession. But what if Akhenaten, in our alternate tale, saw his daughters not just as pawns, but as pillars of his divine mission? Picture him, a man consumed by faith, gazing at Meritaten and seeing not just his child, but the embodiment of Aten's light, a partner to cement his godhood. Imagine Ankhesenpaten, her youth cloaked in grace, drawn into the court's intimate rituals, her role blurring the line between duty and something deeper. This isn't history, it's our reimagining, where the boundaries of family and power dissolve. Back to reality for a moment. Akhenaten's reign was a gamble. His obsession with Aten weakened Egypt's military and economy as resources poured into Amarna's temples. Foreign kings, like those in Mitanni, sent letters begging for gold, hinting at strained alliances. At home, the court was a pressure cooker. Nefertiti, a commanding presence, may have co-ruled with Akhenaten, her influence rivaling his. Their daughters, raised in this crucible, were groomed for greatness, yet bound by it. Did they embrace their roles, resent them? We'll never know their hearts, but their images in Amarna's art, smiling, serene, hide stories we can only guess. Let's draw a modern parallel. Akhenaten's radical vision wasn't unlike today's disruptors. Think of a tech mogul or a revolutionary leader upending norms for a greater good. His family, like modern dynasties, was both his strength and his vulnerability. Ever facetune a royal family today, politicians or celebrities keeping power close, ensuring their name endures. Ever notice how some families guard their legacy fiercely, grooming heirs to carry the torch? It's not marriage, but it's the same instinct. Control the narrative, secure the future. Akhenaten's court was no different, a stage where loyalty and ambition danced a delicate waltz. The atmosphere in Amarna was electric. Imagine the tension. Akhenaten, a visionary or a fanatic, surrounded by those who adored or envied him. His daughters, young and radiant, were more than ornaments. They were the future of his faith. Meritaten's name appears on monuments, suggesting she held a role beyond ceremony, perhaps even as a consort in the waning years of Akhenaten's reign. Ankhesenpaten, later the wife of Tutankhamun, was a prize in the Game of Thrones. In our parallel world, we'll push this further, where these roles take on new weight, charged with devotion and desire, shaped by a pharaoh's unyielding will. As we close this chapter, picture Amarna at its peak, a city of light, faith, and secrets. Akhenaten stands tall, his daughters at his side, their beauty a mirror of Aten's glow. But what happens when a king's vision blurs the line between divine duty and human impulse? In Part 3, we'll step fully into our alternate world, where Akhenaten marries one daughter and takes another as a concubine, weaving a tale of power, faith, and forbidden bonds. How far will his ambition go, and what will his daughters choose in this reimagined saga? Stay with us, the story's about to ignite. Welcome back, seekers of hidden truths. In Part 2, we walked through Akhenaten's radiant yet turbulent Amarna, a city where faith in Aten reshaped Egypt, and his daughters stood as pillars of his divine vision. Now, we step fully into our parallel world, a reimagined 18th dynasty where the heretic pharaoh's ambition takes a daring turn. In this alternate tale, Akhenaten doesn't just defy the gods, he defies the boundaries of family, marrying his young daughter, Meritaten, and naming Ankhesenpaten, his concubine. This isn't mere scandal. It's a calculated act of power, faith, and something deeper, woven into the fabric of a court where divinity and desire blur. Why would a king bind himself so closely to his daughters? What drove this choice in our story? Let's explore this provocative saga where loyalty, ritual, and forbidden bonds collide and see how it mirrors the undercurrents of power today. Picture Amarna at twilight, the sun disk Aten, casting golden rays over palaces of alabaster and sandstone. Akhenaten stands in his temple, arms raised to his god, his silhouette both majestic and haunted. Beside him is Meritaten, his eldest daughter, her youth radiant yet solemn, her eyes reflecting the weight of her role. In our parallel world, she is no longer just a princess, she is his great royal wife, a title once held by her mother, Nefertiti. Nearby, Ankhesenpaten, equally young and graceful, moves through the court with a quieter presence, her status as concubine marking her as both cherished and enigmatic. This is no ordinary family portrait, it's a tableau of power, faith, and unspoken tensions. In our alternate Amarna, Akhenaten's decision to marry Meritaten is rooted in his obsession with Aten. He sees himself as the sun god's sole prophet, his bloodline the vessel of divine light. Meritaten, named Beloved of Aten, is more than his daughter. She's a living symbol of his faith. Imagine the ceremony, priests chanting hymns to the sun, lotus blossoms strewn across the altar, Meritaten draped in sheer linen that catches the light like a halo. The court watches, some in awe, others in silent judgment. To Akhenaten, this union isn't personal desire. It's a sacred act, binding his dynasty to Aten's eternal glory. Yet in the flickering torchlight, there's a spark of something human, a glance, a moment of connection that blurs the line between duty and devotion. Ankhesenpaten's role as concubine adds another layer. In our story, she isn't a formal wife, but a figure of intimate favor, her presence in Akhenaten's private chambers a whispered secret among courtiers. Picture her moving through the palace, her beauty drawing eyes, her status ambiguous yet powerful. Unlike Meritaten's public role, Ankhesenpaten's is private, shrouded in the mystique of the pharaoh's inner circle. In Egyptian culture, concubines were more than mere companions. They could wield influence, bear heirs, and shape the court's dynamics. Here, she's a confidant, a muse, her youth and grace a counterpoint to Meritaten's regal authority. Together, these sisters embody the dual faces of Akhenaten's vision, divine order and personal devotion. Why these choices? In our parallel world, Akhenaten's motives are layered. First, there's power. By marrying Meritaten, he ensures no rival can claim her hand and challenge his throne. Her status as great royal wife locks the dynasty's future within his control. Ankhesenpaten's role as concubine, meanwhile, strengthens his inner circle, keeping her close in a court rife with intrigue. Second, there's faith. Akhenaten sees his daughters as extensions of Aten's light, their union with him a ritual to sanctify his reign. But there's a third, subtler thread, humanity. In our tale, imagine Akhenaten, a man isolated by his radical vision, finding solace in the daughters who share his blood and his dream. Their youth, their loyalty, their shared devotion to Aten create a bond that's both sacred and intimate, a forbidden dance of power and affection. Let's ground this in history for a moment. In the real Amarna, evidence suggests Meritaten may have been elevated to great royal wife late in Akhenaten's reign, possibly after Nefertiti's role diminished. whether by death or political shift we don't know. Inscriptions show her in queenly roles, and some scholars speculate she bore a child, Meritaten Tasherit, perhaps with Akhenaten. Ankhesenpaten, later Ankhesenamun, married her half-brother Tutankhamun, a union that fits the royal pattern of consolidating power. Our alternate world amplifies these hints, turning historical possibilities into a vivid narrative where the lines of family, duty, and desire intertwine. Now picture the court's reaction. Advisors, loyal to the old gods, whisper of blasphemy. Priests of Amun, sidelined by Akhenaten's reforms, see his choices as proof of madness, yet others, those dazzled by Aten's cult, view the unions as divine. Meritaten, in our story, embraces her role, her ambition mirroring her father's. She walks the palace with authority, her presence silencing doubters. Ankhesenpaten, though, is more enigmatic. Imagine her in quiet moments, her gaze distant, navigating a role she neither chose nor fully rejects. In our tale, she's no passive figure. She uses her proximity to Akhenaten to influence his decisions, her charm a subtle weapon in a court of shifting loyalties. Let's weave in a modern parallel. Today we don't see royal incest, but we do see power dynamics that echo Akhenaten's world. Think of influential families, political dynasties, corporate empires, where loyalty is kept close and outsiders are rarely trusted. Ever notice how some leaders surround themselves with family, not just for legacy, but for control? Or consider the allure of forbidden relationships in pop culture, movies, books, and shows that flirt with taboo bonds to captivate audiences. The tension between duty and desire, public image and private truth, isn't unique to Egypt. We're drawn to stories of blurred lines, whether it's a CEO grooming their heir or a scandalous affair dominating headlines. Akhenaten's choices in our parallel world tap into that same fascination. Back to Amarna. The palace is a stage of light and shadow. Meritaten, as great royal wife, joins Akhenaten in public rituals, their unity a spectacle of divine harmony. Imagine them offering to Aten, their hands intertwined, the crowd chanting as the sun blazes overhead. But in private, the dynamic shifts. Ankhesenpaten's role as concubine brings her into Akhenaten's inner sanctum, where faith and intimacy blur. Picture a quiet chamber, walls painted with sun discs, where they speak of Aten's will, or perhaps something more personal. In our story, these moments aren't crude. They're charged with the weight of a king's isolation and a daughter's complex loyalty, a bond that's both strategic and strangely tender. The court buzzes with rumors. Some see Akhenaten's choices as genius, tying his daughters to his legacy in a way no rival can break. Others whisper of excess, of a pharaoh lost in his own myth. Nefertiti, still a towering figure in our tale, watches with unreadable eyes. Is she a rival, a mentor, or a shadow fading from power? Her presence adds tension, a reminder that even divine families fracture under ambition. In this parallel Amarna, the sisters navigate their roles with grace and cunning, aware that their father's favor is both a gift and a chain. As we close this chapter, imagine Akhenaten at his zenith, his daughters at his side, their bonds a defiant act of faith and power. But what legacy will this leave? Will their choices strengthen the dynasty or sow the seeds of its fall? In Part 4, we'll explore the aftermath, how this alternate Amarna shapes Egypt's future and what it reveals about our own world's obsessions with power, family, and forbidden lines. Stay with us. The final act awaits. Welcome back, explorers of our parallel Amarna. In Part 3, we plunged into a reimagined world where Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, married his young daughter Meritaten and took Ankhesenpaten as his concubine, weaving a tapestry of faith, power, and forbidden bonds. Now, in this final chapter, we explore the fallout of these choices. What legacy did this radical dynasty leave in our alternate Egypt? Did Akhenaten's vision secure his divine dream, or did it sow the seeds of ruin? And how do these ancient acts of ambition and intimacy mirror the power plays and taboos of our modern world? Let's step into the twilight of Amarna, reflect on its echoes, and ask, what does this tell us about ourselves? Grab a seat. This is where history and today collide. Picture Amarna in its final days. The sun disk attends still blazing, but cracks forming in Akhenaten's dream. In our parallel world, his marriage to Meritaten has cemented her as great royal wife, a figure of divine authority. She stands beside him in temples, her presence a living symbol of Aten's favor, her youth cloaked in regal poise. Ankesenpaten, the concubine, moves in the shadows of the palace, her influence quieter but no less potent, her bond with Akhenaten a private anchor in a court of whispers. Yet the weight of these unions ripples through the dynasty. The court, once dazzled by Akhenaten's vision, now hums with unease. Priests of the old gods, sidelined by his reforms, plot in secret. Foreign allies grow restless, sensing weakness. And Nefertiti, the enigmatic queen, watches, her role diminished but her shadow long. In our story, Meritaten embraces her power. Imagine her leading rituals, her voice commanding as she invokes Aten, her father-husband at her side. She's no mere consort, she's a co-architect of his legacy, her ambition matching his. But power comes at a cost. Whispers spread that her union with Akhenaten has borne a child, a daughter, a new link in the divine chain. This child, in our tale, is both a triumph and a spark of controversy, proof of the dynasty's strength, but also a reminder of its unorthodox bonds. Ankesenpaten, meanwhile, navigates her role with subtlety. Picture her in quiet moments with Akhenaten, her words shaping his decisions, her presence a balm to his growing paranoia. Yet her status as concubine fuels jealousy. Courtiers question her influence, and Meritaten's gaze sharpens with rivalry. The legacy of these choices is a double-edged sword. On one hand, Akhenaten's unions with his daughters solidify his control. No rival can claim Meritaten's hand or Ankesenpaten's favor, locking the dynasty's future within his bloodline. His faith in Aten burns brighter, his family a living testament to his divine mission. Inscriptions in our alternate Amarna glorify these bonds, depicting Meritaten and Akhenaten as godlike partners, Ankesenpaten a radiant muse. But the cost is steep. The court fractures, some see divinity, others decadence. The old priesthood loyal to Amun stirs rebellion, whispering that Akhenaten's obsession has angered the gods. Egypt's wealth dwindles, poured into Aten's temples while foreign threats loom. The dynasty, meant to be eternal, teeters on a fragile edge. Let's ground this in history. In the real world, Akhenaten's reign ended in turmoil. After his death around 1336 BCE, Amarna was abandoned and the old gods were restored. Tutankhamun, likely, his son, married Ankesenpaten, renamed Ankhesenemun, but their reign was short, and their deaths marked the dynasty's decline. Evidence suggests Meritaten's elevated role, possibly as a consort, but the details are murky. Our parallel world amplifies this, imagining a dynasty pushed to its limits by Akhenaten's choices. In our tale, his death leaves Meritaten and Ankesenpaten to face the consequences. Meritaten as a widowed queen, Ankesenpaten caught between loyalty and survival. Imagine the sisters, once united by their father's vision, now navigating a crumbling court, their roles both a crown and a curse. Now, let's draw the thread to today. Akhenaten's story, real and reimagined, is about power and its price. His drive to control his legacy through family echoes modern dynasties. Think of political families or corporate empires where heirs are groomed to inherit not just wealth, but influence. Ever notice how some leaders keep power close, trusting only kin? It's not incest, but it's the same instinct. Family as fortress. Look at royal scandals or celebrity clans. When a family's private bonds spill into public view, we're riveted. Why? Because we're fascinated by the tension between duty and desire, loyalty and ambition. Akhenaten's Amarna, with its divine marriages, feels alien, but its core, power, legacy, taboo, lives in our headlines. Consider taboos. In Egypt, royal incest was sacred. Today, it's unthinkable. But don't we have our own forbidden lines? Relationships that skirt society's edges, age gaps, power imbalances, spark debate and fascination. Think of media storms around controversial couples or dynastic alliances. We judge, yet we watch, drawn to the drama of blurred boundaries. Akhenaten's choices in our parallel world tap into that same pull. His daughters, bound to him by faith and ritual, reflect a universal truth. Power distorts relationships, whether in a palace or a penthouse. Ever wonder why we're obsessed with forbidden love stories? They reveal our struggle with what's allowed and what's desired. Back to our story. As Amarna falters, Meritaten fights to preserve her father's vision. Imagine her rallying loyalists, her voice steady despite the chaos. Ankhesenpaten, more pragmatic, seeks alliances, perhaps even eyeing a new future beyond Aten's cult. In our tale, their child, Meritaten's daughter, becomes a symbol of hope or division, a new generation born of a radical dream. But the old gods return, and Amarna's light fades. Temples crumble, inscriptions are erased, and the sisters' fates blur into legend. Did they triumph or fall? In our parallel world, their legacy is bittersweet, a dynasty that burned bright but burned out, its story whispered by the Nile. What does this leave us with? Akhenaten's alternate Amarna shows how far ambition can push a family, how faith can justify the unthinkable, and how power reshapes love. His daughters, in our tale, weren't just victims. They were players, navigating a world that demanded both devotion and defiance. Today, we see echoes in families that dominate politics, business, or fame, their bonds both strength and scandal. We're drawn to these stories because they force us to question, where do we draw the line? What's sacred and what's taboo? Akhenaten's choices, real or reimagined, challenge us to look at our own world, our dynasties, our desires, our limits. As we close, picture Amarna's ruins, the sun setting over forgotten temples. Akhenaten's dream is gone, but his story lingers, a cautionary tale of vision and excess. In our parallel world, Meritaten and Ankhesenpaten stand as queens of a fleeting era, their bonds with their father a spark that lit both glory and ruin. What do you think? Was Akhenaten a visionary or a fanatic? Did his daughters wield power or bear its weight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's spark a debate. If this journey through our alternate Egypt gripped you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more tales where history meets the forbidden. Thanks for traveling with us. What's next?